Thunder!
Hey everybody, how's it going? I've been playing through the Thousand Year Door remake over the past couple of weeks, and it made me realize that we really just got two amazing Mario RPG remakes back to back. The Super Mario RPG remake, of course, came out back in November, and that was incredibly faithful to the original. And now we just got the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake, and that's proven to be an insanely high quality remake as well. I'm just amazed that Nintendo has finally brought these fan favorites back, and I'm happy that newcomers to these games finally have an opportunity to play through them and realize why these games have as much of a cult following as they do. But now it has me thinking, if Nintendo brought back both of these games around the same time, what could they be planning for the future of Mario RPGs? I absolutely think that Intelligent Systems is at least considering a return to form for Paper Mario after how well the remake has been performing so far. And as for Super Mario RPG, I have to wonder if Nintendo would be considering a follow-up in the future. Now, Super Mario RPG isn't a game that necessarily needs a sequel, but I wouldn't be opposed to it either. So I decided to put together what I would want in a hypothetical sequel to this game. There are three major things that I want to focus on for this: story, characters, and gameplay. Let's get started right away with talking about the game's story. Our story begins with Mario and Peach visiting Mallow, who has taken on his new role as Prince of Nimbus Land. The three are having a nice, calm, peaceful visit when all of a sudden they hear chaos from down below. Strange things are happening in the Mushroom Kingdom. They see the kingdom taken over by what appears to be Bowser's forces. The three end up making their way towards Peach's castle to try and figure out what's going on. They end up finding Bowser being detained by Peach's guards. Bowser insists that this isn't his doing and that his minions tried to overthrow him. Bowser reluctantly requests for Mario's help in getting things back under control. Mario, Mallow, and Peach agree, and they make their way towards Bowser's Keep and defeat Magikoopa, who was leading Bowser's forces. Magikoopa admits defeat and says that he should have never made that wish. Perplexed by this revelation, Mallow says that they should go and see the Frog Sage to see if he knows what's going on. The group offers for Bowser to come with, but he declines this time and instead stays back to make sure no one else tries to take over his kingdom. Don't worry though, Bowser isn't completely absent from the party, but I'll get back to that later. While Mario, Mallow, and Peach set off to meet with the Frog Sage, we turn our attention to another character: Geno. Geno arrives from Star Road to help with the crisis. The chaos is directly tied to the Star Road again, so it makes sense that Geno would get involved. However, we're sort of changing Geno's role this time around. Instead of entering the body of a puppet owned by Gaz in the first game, Geno would find a new vessel to inhabit. See, Gaz would be a bit older than he was in the first game, and like how many other kids do, has moved on to slightly older skewed toys. Geno ends up entering an action figure owned by Gaz that takes after one of Geno's original concept designs. Ditching the gun arm, Geno now has a sword. I honestly think that this works a bit better for Geno because with him being somewhat of a divine authority, him becoming essentially what is a sword-wielding paladin feels like a good fit for his character. So after Geno arrives in Rose Town and gets his new body, he makes his way towards Mario's house to get his help. He instead finds Luigi. This is sort of acting like a big callback to the first game, where at Star Hill, you can see Luigi's wish of wanting to help Mario on his adventures. So now this can be seen as Geno essentially helping Luigi fulfill that wish. Before leaving the Mushroom Kingdom, the two groups meet up and the adventure truly begins. While the Frog Sage wasn't able to provide any information as to what has been happening, Geno reveals that something is wrong with the wishes that are being granted from Star Road. So now we add a little bit more context that our heroes don't yet know at this point. A chaotic mage has shown up from the same dimension as Culex, the secret boss from the first game. His goal this time around is not to take over the Mushroom Kingdom, and he has instead opted to take over the Star Road itself. The mage took it upon himself to start granting any and all wishes, even malicious ones. This has caused many of the kingdoms to become changed and twisted in strange ways. This can already be seen with what happened with Bowser's forces in the Mushroom Kingdom. So Mario and his friends are going to be making their way across all of these different kingdoms in order to set things back to the way they were before the wishes were made. Alright, so now that we've gotten our basic story out of the way, let's talk about the party makeup and characters. First off, Mario and Peach are remaining essentially the same, fulfilling their same roles from the original game. Then we have Mallow, who is much more adept with magic at this point and has a lot more spells at his disposal, sort of becoming the typical red mage class that we see in Final Fantasy. Now Geno, on the other hand, is overhauled immensely. Like I said before, instead of having the gun arm, he now has a sword. Geno will still have attack attacks like Geno Flash, Geno Beam, and Geno Whirl, but his overall playstyle is going to be more focused on physical melee attacks and high damage output. So for our first brand new addition to the party, we have Luigi. Now the thing with Luigi is that he needs to be able to stand out from Mario. I think the best way to do this would be to give him the Poltergust from Luigi's Mansion, or at least a modified version of it. I already envision Luigi as sort of being the defense-heavy, supporting character of the party. Now this isn't meant to emphasize Luigi's cowardice, but rather his heroism and his desire to support his brother and his friends. I think the way the Poltergust could work is that it could be used like a weapon by having Luigi being able to swing it at enemies like a physical weapon, but also being able to shoot gusts of air at enemies similar to the arrow spell in Final Fantasy. On top of that, where it allows Luigi to act on defense is that the Poltergust would be able to have an ability where if Luigi uses it, it would be able to suck up any incoming enemy projectiles to then later launch them right back at them. One final thing about Luigi that I would want him to have is the Thunder Hand from Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. It would allow him to use a move similar to Mario's Fireball while still remaining unique and dealing a different type of elemental damage. Despite Thunder Hand only appearing in the one game, I'd love to see it become a unique ability that Luigi just has in the RPGs going forward. Our next new party member that I want to see is Jonathan Jones. Johnny is a character that I honestly hoped would have been a secret party member in the remake. His design has always been a favorite of mine, and his friendship with Mario makes him feel like a perfect addition to the existing party. Story-wise, I thought of how Mario and friends could get Johnny to join. Maybe at some point in the story, our heroes need to go somewhere they can only get to by water. They need someone who knows the ocean better than anyone. I could see Johnny agreeing to help them out due to his loyalty to Mario. It would be something that would be presented at first as him only being a temporary party member, but it would end with Johnny deciding to continue traveling with the party due to, once again, his loyalty and his honor. I see Jonathan Jones being the new tank of the party. He would have really high defense alongside higher attack range and more counter abilities. Alright, so our final new party member is someone who I debated on including, Rosalina. Now, Rosalina has been a talking point for a lot of Mario RPG fans in regards to her potential connections to Star Road and possibly being the higher authority that Geno mentions in the first game. Now, I don't necessarily think that Rosalina needs to be Geno's superior, but I do think she has at least some connection to Star Road due to her being a princess of the cosmos. This connection will be story relevant because I envision Mario and friends actually having to go to Star Road in this sequel. Her playstyle would be a bit of a glass cannon in battle. She would have a lot of powerful spells and abilities, many of which would provide status buffs and debuffs, but she would have somewhat lower defense. Nonetheless, Rosalina would still be a very powerful party member to have. Now, there are still plenty of other characters that will show up as well, but we have to talk about gameplay and mechanics first. As for how this game is going to play, I think there are two directions in terms of playstyle that I think the sequel could go in, but luckily the mechanics that I have in mind work for both, so let's dive into those first. First off, swapping members from the remake will stay, but I want there to be the ability to swap Mario out as well. I don't think Mario has to be the leader of the party all the time, and this would allow for a lot more unique party compositions. Team attacks should be expanded upon as well. I know we already got the addition of the triple attack with the remake, but I would love to see more two-character combo attacks get added. They wouldn't need to be necessarily overpowered attacks, but this would be something that would add more variety to attack options, as well as causing players to be more strategic with their party makeup depending on what team attacks they want to have available in battle. The next thing I want is more weapons, more armor, more accessories. I just want a larger amount of obtainable and even upgradable gear. Mario RPG had a pretty natural progression of armor and weapons that felt somewhat linear over the course of the game. I would love for a sequel to have more of a variety in armor and weapons with their own strengths and weaknesses that allow for more strategy when giving characters equipment. Something like materia from Final Fantasy getting added could be fun as well if adjusted to fit into the Mario universe. I don't see them going overboard with this concept, but I could see something like materia gems that act as like power-up essences being slotted into different equipment. These could be basic things like mushrooms for health buffs or POW blocks for attack power increases, but I think it could also work with things like fire flowers or the super leaf granting unique modifiers to certain attacks in battle. The next big thing that I want to see in this sequel is a larger variety of monsters and enemies. A lot has happened in the Mario series since Mario RPG came out, so I think that there's plenty that they could pull from. I would even like to see some Final Fantasy and even Dragon Quest enemies get sort of remixed to fit into the Mario universe. Additionally, summons are something that I think should get added as well. They already dabbled with the idea of summons with the Yoshi cookie, but I'd like to see it taken even further. This would allow for a lot more characters that aren't playable to still still show up in battles. They could even have something where these characters have optional boss fights, and if you defeat them, you get their summon. There are plenty of characters that would work as summons too. Booster, Valentina and Dodo, Toad, Birdo, etc. I just think it would be really fun to allow a lot more of these side characters a chance to shine. So the last major addition that I want to general gameplay is more stuff to do in the world aside from the main story. I want exploration to be opened up even more, and I'd love to see a side quest system. This is even something that they could tie directly into the whole plot of the game as well, with characters asking for help with wishes gone wrong. I think that there's a lot that could be done with side quests because they would allow for an added level of challenge to the game and maybe even a chance to let other characters shine. Maybe specific side quests are only doable with certain party members, which would really put an emphasis on learning the ins and outs of every party member at your disposal. Lastly, in regards to side quests, remember how I said earlier that Bowser wasn't completely removed from the party? Well, I thought of the idea of him being an optional party member that could be unlocked via side quests. Maybe if you do enough quests that help him and his forces, he would agree to join the party. I'm essentially positioning Bowser as an incentive to players in order to encourage doing more side quests aside from the main story. Now that we've gotten all the general gameplay mechanics out of the way, I want to delve into gameplay styles. The first style that they could use for the sequel could be to just polish up the traditional turn-based gameplay from the original game and just continue using that. Bit of a if it ain't broke don't fix it situation. Of course, all the mechanics that I already listed could slide in perfectly to this formula. Wouldn't need to change a whole lot, just add on to what already works and improve upon some of the quality of life aspects. Maybe you could even expand the in-battle party to 4 characters instead of 3. Especially if a sequel were to add more characters, it would make sense that you would want to use more of them in battle. While this style is great, and it would make sense for a sequel to follow the formula of its predecessor, I'd like to propose an alternative. I think that Mario RPG being another traditional turn-based JRPG series alongside Paper Mario could still work. Even if Paper Mario was to return to form, I think that the two games have enough differences for them to coexist no problem. But on the other hand, Paper Mario technically is the follow-up or spiritual successor to Mario RPG, so maybe Nintendo should take the actual Super Mario RPG in a different direction for a follow-up. Hear me out. The original concept of Super Mario RPG was to take the standard Square RPGs like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and essentially make a Mario version of those types of games. Now, of course, at the time, Final Fantasy was the standard turn-based JRPG, but that series has since evolved past that style. If the whole point of Super Mario RPG is to play off of Final Fantasy, who's to say that a Mario RPG sequel couldn't take after a newer Final Fantasy or even something quirkier like Kingdom Hearts? I am suggesting that the sequel for Mario RPG to be an action role-playing game instead of turn-based. Now, I can already hear some people saying that this style wouldn't fit Mario, but I counter that with the entire concept of Kingdom Hearts as a whole. You have this kid who looks like a platforming mascot fighting off wacky enemies with Donald Duck and Goofy. But no, Mario wouldn't be able to fit in a game like that. People were skeptical about games like Mario plus Rabbids and even the original Mario RPG, but look at how those games turned out. I just think it would be really fun to take the concept of what a Mario RPG is even further. I envision the gameplay as being somewhat of a combination of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You would have the floatier hack and slash combat alongside the ability to control each individual party member and even the possibility of an ATB meter for certain attacks. I can totally envision Mario swinging around his hammer at enemies, shooting his fireballs like traditional spells. I could even see there being a passive mechanic for Mario and Luigi where they could footstool off of enemies during combos and deal a bit of damage like how they would in mainline games. I really don't think that a Mario RPG that would play like this is out of the realm of possibility. I think we have to welcome more experimentation like this because more often than not, it produces some of the most creative and unique gaming experiences. It's the whole reason we have Mario RPG to begin with. That basically does it for the core ideas I had for a sequel, but there are still a few final things that I want to touch on. I think that would be really cool to get more secret bosses or post-game content with this game too. With the whole theme of wishes with Star Road, maybe you could wish to fight certain bosses or characters. Maybe you could rematch bosses from the first game like Smithy or the Axum Rangers. Culex would absolutely need to come back if this was the case. I mean, I'm already assuming that he would be a part of the main story, so maybe in post-game you would fight an even stronger version of him, or maybe you could have an actual Final Fantasy character show up as a secret boss. bosses. Maybe even Link or Samus could be optional post-game bosses to play off of their cameos in the original game. Alright, that last one is a little bit of a reach, but I had to at least entertain the idea. Once again, while Super Mario RPG isn't a game that needs a sequel, I still think that the concept is at the very least deserving of one. There's still so much that could be done, and with the game's director saying that he would love to return for a sequel, I think it's possible that it does get made at some point. I for one know that I will be there day one if it ever happens. But for now, I think that's enough out of me. If you guys like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Later.